Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless. I'm your host, Carly, and here we break down complex issues around health, the climate crisis, and social justice through a vegan lens. We'll talk about the magic link between your well being and the planet's health, because luckily, choosing a healthier, mindful lifestyle for yourself often creates healthier vibes for our planet too. Staying consciously clueless means getting to show up knowing nothing, but staying open to all that you can learn. From feasting on plant-based meals and reducing waste to learning to meditate, every step you take contributes to your wellness and makes systematic change for the world. You can make a difference. This podcast will show you how. This is an episode from the Consciously Clueless Vault from March of 2023. This interview with Ed Begley Jr. was so much fun. He is such a delight. His conversation around what it means to care about the planet in Hollywood is really interesting. Stay tuned to the end of the episode where I just had to give him his flowers for some of my favorite work he's done in movies from my childhood. Enjoy this episode. I like to ask people where they're feeling right now in this moment, put you on the spot a little bit, if it was a spectrum from clueless to conscious.
Carly, thank you so much for having me on and your wonderful show. What a great theme for a show. I'm in a rare but slightly unsettled state because I got COVID again on Friday. Let me be clear, I tested positive for COVID on Friday, and I haven't really been sick since or before or since. I feel fine. I have what I would call a minor sore throat, but I tested positive again this morning, but I'm fine. And so eventually that positive test will go away and I can mingle with my fellow man and woman again.
Yes, that is quite the feeling of isolation.
Yes.
So sorry, Ed.
No, I'm fine. I'm feeling good is the point, but just slightly unsettled because I'm supposed to work on Monday something. I test negative by Saturday, or they won't be able to have me on set, of course, on Monday, and they'll have to work something out. Hopefully that won't cause them that problem. But again, all minor problems. There's people out there in Ukraine and elsewhere with real problems, and I'm not one of them.
Yeah, always good to keep perspective, but at the same time, real bummer to have your life held up by something like that.
Yeah. How are you today, Carly? Tell me how you're feeling.
I'm doing good. It is sunny. I'm in northern Minnesota, so there's just tons of snow. So anytime there's sun, I will welcome it and feel its warmth and feel some vitamin D.
Yeah, we're having the same thing. It's usually sunny most of the year, and it still will be statistically sunny most of this year. But we've had a lot of rain, as you probably heard, here in California, and some snow at even lower elevations. So today the sun is shining bright again, and it's nice after that much needed water we got.
Yeah, it really does make a difference. I forget until it's been a few days of clouds, and then it just feels so rejuvenating. So I've heard in a few interviews that you've done in the past, people ask about where has your inspiration for being so environmentally minded come from? And I know you've talked about your dad a lot.
My dad was a big influence. He never really used the word environmentalist, but he was one in a way, because we turn off the lights and turn off the water and save string and save tinfoil, and just were very careful with everything. He was the son of Irish immigrants. He had lived through the Great Depression, so I got a lot of that from him. But that was the positive influence, was my dad. The negative was equally compelling, because I grew up in smoggy LA and lived with that smog for 2 decades, and it would just sear your lungs. It just hurt. Forget about running around as a kid. To just sit on a bench and breathe the air, you'd be, oh my, I can't. Wow. You couldn't quite catch your breath, and it hurt to breathe. So that will get anybody motivated, get most people motivated, I'll say.
And I think just as fascinating is not only where did this inspiration come from, but to stay motivated to work at something for decades. Where do you find this ability to keep going? Where does that hope come from?
it comes from the people that are doing extraordinary things. I'm basically a cheapskate that likes to ride my bike and take the bus. And, I'm being a little bit unkind, perhaps, but still, there are people out there, Jane Goodall and Vandana Shiva and Barute Galdikas and these people, Dolores Huerta, that are doing important things, as regards the environment. Rachel Carson, who really suffered and paid a great price for their care for the farm workers and for the environment and other important things like that, care for the chimpanzees in Jane's case and Barute with the orangutans. I've done a little bit and do get encouragement, though, from their work and also from where we have made some progress. We have 4 times the cars in LA, 4 times since 1970, and millions more people. The smog is not the same. It's not worse from 1970. It's better. So we still have a ways to go. You did not hear today. Ed Begley said the smog is fixed in LA. It is not. There's
End of interview.
Near these fulfillment. Right. Pack up your tent, declare success, and go home. Not so. People that live near the fulfillment centers nowadays, people live near the freeway interchanges, people live near the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles are still breathing very dirty air. We have to get them some relief. And I continue to work towards that. But we've proven that it can work. All the stuff we hoped would work, Carly, did work. Cleaner cars, catalytic converters on cars, cleaner power plants, all the stuff big and small that we did. Stop using perchloroethylene, for dry cleaning. All that stuff we tried, it worked. And so we've proven that we can do it. Banning CFCs worked. The ozone hole is not the problem that it was in the past. So we can do this. We just have to set about doing it and save what's left. There's a lot now that unfortunately has been lost. There's a lot of pollution in the pipeline. No matter what we do, there'll be continued loss, but let's save what remains, whatever we can.
I love that message. And I heard you say this before too. And when I first became really genuinely interested in the environment and making a difference and dove in, I had this naive sense that it was just my individual actions would cure everything. And not that I don't think those are important, but I am learning more and more about these, these community level, this global level and political level. And what can we do on a legislation level? Like what things work on that level of change?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I sometimes forget to mention that, and that's so important. My personal action has been satisfying to me, and I feel like I've accomplished a lot. That's just 1/3 of what needs to be done, in the important big ticket item. That is to say, personal action, very important. Good legislation. The Clean Air Act is how come we got to clean up the air in LA. All that personal action helped, but the Clean Air Act gave us the cudgel, the weapon to enforce and clean up the power plants and the cars and everything. And also corporate responsibility. And all 3 intertied. If you're as a consumer wanting to buy more green stuff, the manufacturers are going to make it. If there's good legislation, they'll be more inclined to do it. It'll make it easier for people to do the personal action. All these 3 columns upon which all clean air or clean water has been built, we're like the Cuyahoga River caught fire in 1969. That doesn't happen anymore because of those 3 things. It was the Clean Water Act, the Air is Better in LA, Clean Air Act, and corporations started to do things better, make cleaner cars, make cleaner power plants. They're all related, and you can't just focus on just legislation or just corporate responsibility or just personal action. All 3 together, or you're not going to get anything done.
It's almost relieving when you realize that, because when I thought it was all on me, if I did anything wrong, I felt like I'd failed the planet. And that wasn't sustainable.
I have that feeling myself.
I cried the first time I got a plastic straw after deciding I was an environmentalist, and was like, that's not sustainable for long-term activism.
I myself I labored under the delusion for years that all this plastic, or most of it, was going to be recycled. I knew there was some resins, 4, 5, and 6 that were really hard to recycle and what have you. But no, 1 through 3, man, we're taking care of that. And so never really thinking, as you mentioned, the straw. What number is on the straw? There's no number in the straw. There's no room for it. You can't, it's not possible. Where does it go? It's just another piece of plastic that goes into the ocean, gets caught in a turtle's nose, for God's sake. All this single-use plastic is terrible. Yeah. And we thought it was all going to be taken care of with recycling. And that's not the case. A very low amount of the single-use plastic is actually recycled. It's a fairly low number, we now learn. And so we've got to do a lot better. The best thing, when you've got a tub that's overflowing and what have you, you want to get mops, you want to clean it up and get buckets and all that stuff. But the first thing you want to do is turn off the tap. If the tub is overflowing, turn off the water so it stops overflowing. And then you can get your bucket and your mops and what have you. And that's what we got to do with single-use plastic. Stop it all. Stuff like this, I suppose, this is a good use of plastic in glass is fine. Something like that makes sense. It's going to be, somewhat permanent, at least last a decade or something like it, for God's sake.
Right.
But just to get a cup of coffee or to get a straw, get a drink, there's no reason it has to be in a throwaway kind of a thing. It's insane.
So there's been so many advancements that you've mentioned a few that you've seen in your lifetime. Are there things that you can't believe we don't have yet, or that you can't believe haven't happened yet, like maybe technology or legislation?
Yeah, I'm really surprised that there's not a greater push in places like Los Angeles, Phoenix, Tucson, all these places in the Southwest and everywhere really, where they don't have a better program to capture rainwater, but certainly in Southern California, the desert communities. Why aren't we capturing all the rainwater you conceivably could get? It just goes into that concrete channel known as the LA River and goes out to the sea. And you could use that. We could meet at least half of our water needs in LA and stop stealing it from the Colorado River and stop stealing it from Northern California. We could do that. We could save a lot. Here at my house, as you might have heard, I've got a 10,000 gallon rainwater tank and I've got a gray water system, and everything that doesn't go in the gray water system to irrigate the trees or into the rainwater tank goes where it should go also, which is to percolate down into the soil and recharge the aquifer. So none of that is none of my water is going out in the street and winding up in that concrete channel. And that's something that's very possible and of the greatest urgency, because water is becoming every day, every week, every month, every year, a bigger problem in many parts of the country. And I live in one.
Why do you think stuff like that doesn't exist yet? Is it money?
It's money, and people are resistant to change. People at corporations and individuals are resistant to change. I know somebody said to me, hey, I know you've always learned your lines this way as an actor, but now you got to buy a little tape recorder, you got to do with the tape recorder, and you've got to double up, had some new procedure for me learning my line. That's not the way I've done it my whole life. I don't want to, I don't like that. I've heard people do that with the tape recorder, but I would need to run it with my daughter, and she helps me learn. No, you can't do that anymore. You got to get a little tape, People are resistant to change. It may not be better, but I hate change myself. But when you come up against a thing like climate change, when I came up with the real problems with the smog when I was only 20 years old, I went, I'm going to do something. This is crazy. I'm going to do what I can. And some people, sadly, are still so resistant to change. They are in denial about climate change. They really don't think it's happening. They think it's a hoax. And that's been the most brutal weapon, one of the most brutal weapons we have today, to just call everything a hoax. Yes. Climate change is a hoax. And I have intelligent people who've called me up or emailed me and asked questions. Many of them friends of mine. Now, I heard this is all bullshit because of blah, blah, blah. No, I said, no, that's not true at all. And here's how you can verify what I'm saying is true. There was a thing out years ago. There's more pollution from a Toyota Prius than there's from a Hummer. They had a whole crazy thing where the batteries were made here and shipped there. And some of that was true when they first made the car. There was all this shipping to get the technology right and what have you. But they assigned all the pollution from a nickel plant in Sudbury, Ontario in Canada to just making the batteries. It's also used to make stainless steel for most of the country, and all this stuff. And that plant was cleaned up 15, 20 years ago. So they just did all that. It kind of looked right. Wow, the nickel from the nickel metal hydride batteries before they were lithium ion. People it's as Al Gore rightly suggests, it's an inconvenient truth. It really is inconvenient to believe this is true. It'd be so much easier to just drive around in SUVs and keep the heat the way we want it in the winter and the air conditioning on the summer. It'd be pretty groovy, but that's not the case. That's not the way it is. We have to do something Our legislators have to do something and the corporations have to do something. And I'm talking about now for our survival. It's about our survival at this point.
And I wonder if you've been outspoken, you have been passionate about this since you were in LA in your 20s, and you also have this unique position of being in Hollywood. And that juxtaposition seems really interesting to me. What has it been like to be an environmental activist in that world?
It's a great way to communicate things to people if you have some sort of notoriety in sports and medicine and as a legislator, as an actor, as a singer. But with it comes a responsibility. You don't want to just cry fire in a crowded theater, of course. You don't want to alarm people so they do nothing. But if you're about to go on and do your song and dance in front of an audience, and the fire marshal taps you on the shoulder, Ed, we have to evacuate slowly and calmly, row by row, but there's a fire smoldering in the basement. Do anything right now, but don't do it any entertainment. Just please go out. Would you then just do your song and dance? Of course not. The fire marshal told you there's a fire in the basement. You got to carefully, you don't want to freak people out, but you have to get them moving in an orderly fashion, to the exits. And that's where we're at. The fire marshal is a union of concerned scientists. Michael Mann, James Hansen from NASA, all these people have come to us over the years. In 1987, James Hansen testified before Congress, about the climate change and what it was going to mean to us. And we chose to ignore the fire marshals. It's my responsibility to share that stuff, to make sure I get good information. I don't want to just go out there and say, we're all going to die tomorrow and there's lasers that are trying to kill us. You want to have your facts right. And then if you have the microphone, here, let me tell you about this. And that's responsibility. And you must take it.
Have you ever felt any pushback or felt isolated for having this strong activist mind in that world in Hollywood?
There was a story recently, a reporter asked me that same question, and then she asked me about some of the times when it was harder to get work. And that happened in the 90s to me. But let me be clear, as I tried to be with this reporter, even though it was a factor that people were around me, they thought I was going to take them to task for driving an SUV or to do something. They just were a little concerned about hiring me. I don't need anybody to throw any benefits for me. I'm fine. I got through that period. My bills are very low here with my solar house, and I grow a lot of my own food. I'm not, complaining to anybody. I would do it again in a minute. But it was a thing where my name was never, I don't think, on a list in a drawer somewhere of people that are blackballed in Hollywood. I don't think it was ever as official as that. I just gave people the creeps because I thought I was going to be mad at them for getting out of a limo at a fundraiser or something. So that happened according to my agents and managers back in the 90s, but it didn't last that long. And I got through it. I could work in television. I could go to Canada or Australia and do a movie, but I did work, in Hollywood movies in the 90s. I did a week's work on Batman Forever. Joel Schumacher gave me a nice job. And Ron Howard gave me 6 weeks in a movie called Greedy. Other than that, didn't do movies because I freaked people out, I think. They were afraid of it. Maybe they thought it was a hoax back then. I'm not sure what, but it was a problem. But one easily weathered by me. As I said, my bills are low, so I don't have to worry much about, working a certain amount.
Right. Take it as meaning, but it is an interesting factor to know, especially now it seems that it's more of a trend for celebrities to care about the environment and to be more outspoken. Do you think changed in the last few decades?
It has. It has. By the time the 90s were over and it was the new millennium, people were starting to really realize that things were beginning to occur. And now we can see they certainly are. You have fish swimming on the streets of Miami Beach, because of the sea level rise and the storm surge and what have you. And you have just one wildfire after another. There's always been wildfires, of course. There's worse wildfires and more frequent. There's always been tornadoes, but there are more tornadoes now, stronger. So it's not really just global warming, it's global weirding. You have these incredible cold snaps, and people say, like James Inhofe throws a snowball in the House of Representatives, or in the Senate chamber, I should say, saying, see, this is your climate change for your global warming with a snowball across the Senate floor, I believe. Forgetting that if you got a refrigerator that you're trying to make cold inside, what happens to the back of the refrigerator? It gets hot. It's all between one part of the globe being hotter and one part being colder. There's the Gulf and the jet stream, many other winds and oceans that affect all that. It could be, Washington D.C. where you throw the snowball, but that means it's warm somewhere else.
Right.
There's a system, and what he's talking about is weather. We're not talking about weather. We're talking about climate. They're different things. The other one is a weather report, either local or national, where there's storms coming through and rain and dry periods. But climate is a different matter. And the ocean is warming and the planet is warming. And at some point, it's going to become very problematic for not just us, but many other plant and animal species. And we're there. It's starting to happen now in a very bad way.
My guess, I psychoanalyze. So my guess of that period of the 90s, I wonder if people get nervous because that means they have to examine their own habits too. It's easier to push that way because then they didn't have to think about it. Someone who confronted them or they thought that you might be about the climate forces that might make us have to deal sometimes.
Carly, I did it myself, and I really said it and I meant it back in the 90s when people would talk about it's all climate change is baloney. I was pulling for them. I was kind of hoping Rush Limbaugh was right. And I'm dead serious about this. It's not about, I was right and you were wrong. How wonderful is that? I wanted to be wrong, but it turns out we were not wrong in talking about that.
Right.
It was a real thing that has gotten further along even quicker than we thought it was going to. Greenland, more and more ice is melting all the time. Antarctica, we have problems with loss of ice in many, Glacier National Park in the United States of America. There's not a lot of glacier left there. I've been there myself, receding for a while. So it's a problem, and we have to do something now to save what remains.
So one way to lessen your impact is to think about your diet. And are you vegan or vegetarian?
I was a vegetarian in 1970. I stopped eating meat. I haven't eaten it since. Became a vegan in 92. Now, because of my age and certain medical things, I guess I'm a mostly vegan. I guess you can. I'm a megan. I eat mostly vegan, and shoot me now. It's stuff, and occasionally I stray, but I'm beef or chicken or anything like that, or lamb or veal. Or I haven't had that since 1970.
And that was a decision directly related to its impact on the climate and on the planet.
And it was a compassion issue too. I saw the conditions in the slaughterhouse. I went, I want to do it for the climate. I want to do it for the animals, and I want to do it for myself. I believe it's going to make me healthier if I stopped eating so much steak and so much spare rib and so much all that I was eating. And I changed diet, and I felt better, and I'm sure a lot of animals did too, because I wasn't consuming them in horrible conditions.
Yeah, that is something I've talked about on this podcast a lot, is that I really did go into veganism as looking at it for a diet, for health reasons, for selfish reasons. And then it was all the other dominoes fell as I learned, but it really just was, I think I'll feel better. And then it was, oh, wow.
Right. It's a good way to eat my vegan dishes, and they're loved by vegans and meat eaters alike, and they're crowd pleasers. I occasionally entertain, and not everybody comes to my house for a party is a vegan. Complain about the food. Quite the contrary. They love it, and they can't believe my cream of potato leek soup has no cream and no chicken stock and no beef stock and nothing like that. And it's tasty stuff. And when you think about it, what do you do with the steak if you want it to be tasty? You put a lot of plant matter on it.
Plants on it.
And you put on this kind of plants on it. Yeah. Same with the burger. You want lots of tomato and onion and relish and pickles. Yeah.
That's my favorite party trick, is serving people food they enjoy and telling them after that it's vegan.
Right. I've done that quite a few times myself.
I heard you say something in an interview that I really appreciated, that when you started getting into, okay, what can I do to help this climate crisis? You didn't have the money to invest in solar panels or things like that. And when I was first looking into sustainability, it did feel like I maybe didn't have the capital or the investment power that I wanted. But you talked about all the things you could start with. Could you talk a little bit for people who are like, yeah, I want to help, but I can't do all this expensive, big stuff?
Yeah, I people regularly who say I can't afford a fancy electric car like you drive today, or the solar panels like you have on your roof. I go, I totally understand, because neither could I when I started.
Right.
It's an interesting list of things that you can't afford to do. The things you can't do, that's an interesting list. Hold on to that. Put that aside for a second. Now let's make up another list of
Mm.
things that you can do. Can you buy an energy efficient light bulb? Can you buy an energy saving thermostat? Can you ride your bike if weather and fitness permit? Can you take public transportation if it's available near you? Home gardening, home composting, everything. I just become a vegan. All those things I just mentioned, they're all good for the environment. And what else are they? They're super cheap. They're going to save you money. You're going to
Right.
put money in your pocket. There's another green at stake here, not just the green of the environment, but the green of cash. And you're going to have more of it if you do those simple things. And then if you save money doing those things, and I promise you, you will, you can move up to a medium ticket item, buy a little solar oven, get a rain barrel if you have a place to do that. Put a rain barrel into the downspout, collect your rainwater. And pretty soon you can afford to put solar on your roof, you know. If you're lucky enough, you have a place, a good site for that, a good sun on your roof, and you own your house, or you got a lamp into it. Because nowadays you don't even have to buy it like I did back in the late 80s. You don't have to buy solar. You can lease it for no money down. So
Yeah.
you wind up paying like $70 a month for the solar lease, but you save $100 a month on your bill. So you're putting $30 a month in your pocket. You can point this and spend any money on it like that idiot Begley. You know, I got it. I just signed a contract, and today they're a lot cheaper.
I love that. It's basically the idea of start where you are, because it can be intimidating when you dive heads into this issue, and all of a sudden, if those things aren't on your radar, it's overwhelming. It can feel like the world is on fire. What can I really do? So those
Right.
ones of starting where you are, I think, can help with that overwhelm and climate anxiety. Oh my gosh, look at this friend.
This is my friend that my daughter Hayden found, this little angel at a tow yard. Her car, my daughter's car, had been impounded. And this little dog was there. We thought she was a black terrier. She was so covered in soot and oil. Brought her home
Oh,
here. My daughter brought her home just to put her on, the different bulletin boards, a picture, so whoever owned her could find her and be reunited. She didn't have a chip or anything, no tag. The minute that she met me, I must look like someone in her life. She just glommed onto me. She hadn't let me go since September 16th, my birthday. This all happened on my birthday. So she wanted to say
oh,
hello. I thought I'd say hi to everybody. This
what a
is Bunny.
sweetie. Hi,
She's
baby.
she's very happy here.
I
I'm very
imagine
happy to
it's
my
like
life.
a bit of aid from her previous life.
I think so. And I wish one could learn about a dog's past. If I ever find out what happened to this dog and what the family, I have a feeling I look for care. The tow yard at the impound lot. So she loved my daughter right away, glommed onto her, but she went, move aside. She made a beeline for me, and she hadn't let me go ever since. I don't
It's
know
so
what that's
funny that
about, but I'm going to just enjoy it.
animals choose their people sometimes. They really do.
Yeah, she did.
So I'm curious, what's your vision when you imagine a sustainable future that's possible? What does that look like? What does a vision for a sustainable future look like?
My vision for sustainable future is that it's very inclusive, that it deals with the problem of environmental racism, because all these worst incinerators and plating plants and chrome plating plants and all this dangerous stuff, hazardous waste incinerators, all of it, it's always in the poorest neighborhoods. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have to deal with that and make sure that people aren't, you know, we're cleaning things up here where I live in Studio City, then somewhere in another part of the Southland, is being adversely affected and in grave danger and health risk because of it. It's wonderful to recycle batteries, and we did for years. There was an Exide battery recycling plant, and I was always in favor of battery recycling. But in this poor neighborhood, there was a tremendous amount of lead that escaped into the environment, and their health was at great risk, and they suffered great health from recycling batteries. You can't have, you want to recycle, and you talk about you want electric cars. That's all good. Now, these were lead acid batteries. They're not like the lithium ion batteries we have today. Those are, less dangerous than any of the other stuff you're talking about.
Right.
But still, if you want to do something good, you don't want to have a very side effect occur. So there's a real net environmental gain that you're doing things right, and make sure that people in every part are treated fairly in your goal to make a sustainable future.
It's a really, really good reminder, because I know I live in northern Minnesota. I have so much privilege in the air I breathe, the water I drink. I don't think about so many things that even other people in this country are thinking about, let alone the world.
Me too. I'm very lucky. So I want to use that good fortune to try to fix things in every single part of the world we can.
I couldn't agree more. And I know that you have a line of products, correct? You have a line of is it cleaning products and home products?
That's correct. Back in 1970, one of the other things I didn't mention, I stopped using, like Comets as a cleanser and Formula 409 as a cleaner, or Windex or what have you. I just started using vinegar and water to clean my glass, and I started using baking soda to clean the sink instead of Comet. And that was very cheap, and it worked pretty good. But there's some stains that baking soda won't get up, and some other kinds of cleaning that vinegar won't exactly do. So I thought one day I'd like to have a line of products, that were cleaned every bit as good as Formula 409 or Windex or Comet, but just environment. And so I found it. I've got this great guy, Mark Cunningham, with Lab Clean. He had some great formulas. He came to me and asked me to help him promote these cleaning products. And I've been working with him for a while. There's a great odor and stain remover for pets. We've got lots of different products that clean every part of your house and kitchen. And so it's very important with our pets and our kids. Think about it for a second. Our dogs and cats are on the floor putting their paws in their mouth all the time. You don't want to have something dirty that they're putting in their mouth, something contaminated, I should say. Same with our babies. They're crawling around putting their toes and their fingers in their mouth. So you want to have, a clean environment. And most people like me will be out there protesting a hazardous waste, in their neighborhood, a hazardous waste site. But the worst hazardous waste site is not near your home. It's in your home. It's under your sink. Get rid of that stuff and start using this cleaner. We have some good products. The Begley's Earth Responsible products. Just go to Amazon or any search engine. Just go Begley Cleaning and it'll come up. But there's other good ones out there too. Seventh Generation has good ones. Ecos. There's other companies out there doing it. It's not just about my products. They're fine. But try some green product today. They're all very good. As I just mentioned, are good, and so is ours. And clean up your kitchen and clean up your home in a way that's not going to harm yourself or your family.
I think it's such an undervalued toxicity in our house. The detergent, the fabric softeners, the cleaners, the chemicals, that stuff is toxic.
It is. A lot of stuff you just don't need. Somebody started a whole cottage industry based on the scourge of static cling. You have to put a little sheet of something in your dryer. It's like nothing I laid awake worrying about when I was in my 20s or whenever they started making those stupid sheets. Oh my God, what can we do about this national nightmare?
Hand it to the marketing team.
Their part, as far as selling a product, but there's a lot of stuff we don't need. I think eliminate toxics, and I'm not going to worry about having a dandelion-free lawn, by using, some toxic material. With that, my bicycle, public transportation, even if I didn't have the electric car, there's ways to get around doing it. There's ways to clean up the environment in different ways that save money and, protect the many plant and animal species that we need to keep the web of life going here. And we need together.
I really appreciate that message. I have to say, one more thing, I role that people talk about with you often, but as soon as I got the email from your agent, I was like, Ed Begley Jr., the dad from Pagemaster? So I just wanted you to know that movie was so important to me, that you have done amazing things that I've also seen you in, but that's my first reference every time.
Thank you. I love that movie. It's about reading, it's about libraries, it's about all kinds of good stuff. So I'm very proud to be in that. So you made my day mentioning that, Carly.
Oh, thank you. I think I wore out the VHS of that movie, actually.
That's great. That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. That's very good.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share with my listeners that I haven't given you space to?
No, we've talked about the more important things. You can do this, in ways that we can do it. I think we all need to live simply so that others
Mm.
can simply live.
Thank you, Ed. This was really the most amazing experience.
Likewise, Carly. Thank you. Thank you.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode of Consciously Clueless. And for that, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, tag me when you share on social media, or share this episode with others who may be interested in the topic. Any sharing truly means the world to me. Until next time, stay consciously clueless.